outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Ask Alan. I'm Alan Crone, CEO of the Crone Law Firm, and we're here today with Alex Rasmussen, who is the CEO, president, founder of Neon Canvas and Signature. Alex, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Alan. It's a real pleasure to be with you. I love the show and I appreciate all that you do for our city.
Oh, you're nice. You're very nice. Well, let's for those folks that may not know you, where are you from? Memphis? Where did you come from?
I am. Yes, I was born and raised here in Memphis. My parents actually still own the house over off Getwell and Willow Road. It's a rental property now. There's a couple trees in the front yard that I remember planting when I went to Willow Oaks on like Earth Day or something in kindergarten. And now, those trees are, I remember jumping over them as a kid, and now they're taller than the house is. So born and raised right in the middle of the city, went to Christian Brothers High School, Holy Rosary, and then Christian Brothers High School, graduated from Christian Brothers. And then I spent a little time away from Memphis, but ultimately came back to Memphis and spent the majority of my life and my career here. I graduated from CBU. I'm a proud Memphian and have been born and raised right here.
Very good. What attracts you, other than it's your hometown? What about Memphis attracts you, Alex?
Memphis has so much authenticity in everything that it's got going, whether it's, the neighborhoods that you drive through. You don't see a lot of gentrification in Memphis, right? I mean, you see a lot of preservation of who and what Memphis is. I mean, you even look at our biggest tourist attraction, Graceland, which is, in the middle of a completely undeveloped area over years and years and years. Again, not gentrified, right? If you see that in a city like Nashville or Austin or down, I mean, all of that would be completely built up around it. So for good or for bad, Memphis is very authentic. It's very real. We love the term, the grit and grind, right? That the Grizzlies and that moniker that they've taken on, and it does have a grit about it. It does have a grind. And the people who succeed in Memphis are extremely hard workers, or people who can overcome any adversity, who have grew up in a very diverse racial environment, right? Where you have to be able to work across political party lines and racial lines to get anything done in this city. So I love that. I love that you really have to be a true person. You have to be true to yourself. And everybody knows everybody here. Everybody's a native in Memphis. And so oftentimes when you're doing business with someone, or you've got a decision maker in the room, there's very few degrees of separation. They've got the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever that game is. In Memphis, it's like 1 or 2 degrees, right? I could almost always name somebody that really well. So I just love how close knit the city is and how hard you have to work to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, you said something that's very interesting, and that is, Memphis is very much a metocracy compared to a lot of other southern cities where, you had to go to the right high school or you had to be from the right part of town. And Memphis has always been very welcoming to folks from the outside. And if you had something to offer and some substance, there really wasn't much of a barrier to success.
That's right. That's exactly right. And, for that reason, I have always found that the opportunities are greater in Memphis, where a lot of people may look at Memphis as a city where there's not a lot of opportunity. I've seen it completely the opposite, for people who, again, have the means to work hard and network and understand what it takes to be successful in this city. There's almost nothing in your way.
Yeah. Now you have to speak Memphian. Memphians have a way of doing business, but I think once you figure all of that out, it gets pretty easy.
That's right. Yeah, I think you're right, and that way is honesty and kindness, and with a little bit of dirt on your boots, right? I mean, that's just kind of the Memphis way.
Yeah, sure. Well, Tell us a little bit about your companies. Neon Can. Now it's two different companies, correct?
It is, yeah. So I founded Neon Canvas about 5 years ago now with my business partner, Dr. Kyle Fagala. He's an orthodontist in Germantown, Tennessee, with a couple of offices. And, we saw a need in that niche in the orthodontic market across the United States and Canada that wasn't being serviced, where, doctors, especially orthodontists, are straightening their teeth all the time, or straightening their teeth all day and running their practices. They don't have time to also learn how to market their business. And at the same time, they're often small staffs. You're talking about 8, 9, 10-person staffs where, they don't have a full-time marketing person, yet their business does not come from insurance, right? I mean, you decide you're going to go straighten your kid's teeth. It's not something often that, you have an accident and then all of a sudden you find yourself at the orthodontist. So with that, they have to market themselves. They have to have awareness in the marketplace. And we realized that need needed to be filled where they could go somewhere and get everything that they needed under one marketing umbrella, from website, video, content, ad, search engine optimization, everything that they could possibly need, design work, logos. I mean, you name it, in one place without having to have multiple vendors. So we created the company and went after that niche. Now we have about 150 orthodontists all across the country in Canada. And we're really, really blessed to have grown that business as quickly as we have within the 5 years. The other business, Signature Advertising, that Dr. Kyle and I own, we bought last year from two really great Memphis entrepreneurs, Mark Henry and Charles Marshall, who started Signature Advertising. It's one of the oldest advertising agencies in Memphis. And these are really incredible guys who've been doing great work with amazing companies from FedEx to ServiceMaster, True Green, and Hilton. And there was just no way that Neon Canvas had that story to walk into FedEx and say, hey, do business with us. So it made a lot more sense to go in and buy a legacy company like that with two guys who were kind of looking for that exit strategy later in their careers, where we could continue to build on that legacy, provide great services to these amazing Memphis companies, and hopefully grow that brand. And obviously 2020 was a tough year, I think, for all the big Memphis agencies. You saw a lot of them go out of business, and when corporate dollars get pulled back and you have these major agencies that depend on those corporate dollars, that thing can happen. Luckily, Neon Canvas was built differently, right, in a niche on a retainer model. And so that we had that recurring revenue to get through the tough times and also be able to support Signature through those times. So everything's still intact. Signature's growing this year, and we expect to have a really great year with both businesses in 2021.
Let me ask you this. I'm curious about the orthodontic business model, because you see so much consolidation with other professionals like that. My dad was or still is a pharmacist. And, about the year 2000, the chains came in and bought up all the independent pharmacies. Veterinarians are kind of been going through that same thing in consolidation. But orthodontists and dentists, it seemed to me, still have that independent character. Where do you see that business going?
Alan, the reason for that, the reason they still have that character, and specifically an orthodontist, is it's a really great margin business. I mean, as a doctor or as an attorney, you've got this great education, these years of experience that really allows you to charge for that, right? And so at the end of the day, if you've got a business that you don't have a lot of hard supply costs, right? And you think about the cost of a bracket and wires that actually straighten teeth are really not probably all that expensive, right? You've got offices, and you've got your people, and you've got, your technology and equipment, but the margins can be really, really great in a business like that. So if you've got a business that's operating on 35 to 50% margins nationwide, you're not likely to sell out to the corporation, right? Because the corporation is going to have to pay you a lot of money to walk away from that kind of a lifestyle business. And then again, same thing with efficiencies and things like that. You don't have to work extremely hard or burn yourself out. These guys can work 3-4 days a week, good 8-9 hour days, have a really nice living, support a staff, support their community, and have a quality of life that they really, really enjoy. So I think that's why you've seen, and there is some corporate movement. You think about Invisalign and Smile Direct Club and these major corporations that are getting in on it. But all in all, you think about a city like Memphis. Who do you, Alan, want to take your kids to and get their teeth straightened? Do you want to go to big corporate, or do you want to go to the doctor that lives next door,
Right.
that goes to your church, that's involved in your kids' schools, that you play sports with? It's oftentimes an easy story for that doctor to tell against the big corporate, or against the big corporation.
Yeah, it's an interesting business. And you mentioned lawyers. Lawyers are, I think that's coming. Arizona and Utah have both allowed non-lawyer ownership of law firms. And the largest law firm in the world is an accounting firm in Barcelona, Spain, or at least it used to be a few years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I agree with you that no matter how big corporate interests get, there's always going to be a market for your local, whether it's your local lawyer, your local dentist, your local accountant, and the big corporate stuff will be attractive to some people, but not everybody.
Yeah, we talk about market share all the time with our clients. And if you can go out and carve yourself 10-15% market share, or you can dominate Germantown, Tennessee, or Collierville, or Arlington, or Bartlett, I mean, you can have a great 20, 25, 30-year career, and then probably sell that thing off to a young up and coming orthodontist or dentist, or big corporate, and ride off into the sunset. So it's still a great business model. I'd laugh all the time of my 4 kids. I say, if just one of them will become an orthodontist, I will have done my job. I can retire in grace.
Right. It's just always fun. One of the things I enjoy about being an employment lawyer is I get to analyze and observe how businesses are run, and it always fascinates me how people are able to monetize various products or services or whatnot. And you don't really think of that in terms of your healthcare provider, but more and more the healthcare providers are getting like you say, looking at market share and profit margins and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I could really, get into the real technology and the real exciting stuff, where you've got orthodontists all across the country, many of our clients who have invested in their own labs. So they've bought 3D printers, they buy the resin and create the aligners, the clear aligners like Invisalign would be. Could be Dr. Fagala's aligners. Right there out of Memphis, Tennessee, and they're creating their own product right there in-house in their own labs. So it's really incredible. If you want to be an entrepreneur these days, it really feels like the sky's the limit. I mean, you can do anything you want to do in the age of technology and the internet. Even we talked about how I got into digital marketing, or have begun talking about that. There was no schooling for me to learn how to do search engine optimization or build websites. In 2001, when I came out of high school, the iPhone didn't even exist yet, right? I mean, now we have full computers in our hands, and these things didn't even exist when I came out of college. So that's all self-taught. If not for machine learning and being able to go to Google and say, how do you rank a website number 1 on Google? And back then Google had what they called the Webmaster Guide, which was literally a book on how to do it, how to rank your website on Google. And I mean, there was my career education right there in that one book. And then you become a practical user and a practical teacher, right? Where now I've got 250 sites to work on my own, learn the algorithms, test, A/B test, look at what works, look at what doesn't work. And then you start to become a leader in this, right? Google quits writing the book for you, right? Because Google wants to control all search now. You even look, if you were to go search for a flight, for a trip, you could type in MEM to Miami, and Google could take that entire checkout process without you ever leaving their search page. You would never have to go to Delta or American to book that trip. Google wants to take the whole thing for you. So that's really evolved over the 12, 13 years that I've gotten into it. And you have to keep up. You have to keep learning. You have to keep evolving with them if you want to thrive and survive.
Sure. I know you really can't do a podcast or an interview in business these days without talking about the pandemic. What, from your perspective, what's been the worst thing about it, and then what's the enduring innovation that you think was either accelerated or created because of the pandemic that's going to be a a game changer for your clients?
Wow, that's a great question. So the thing I hated the most about it, maybe not even the right word usage there, but the most disappointing thing to me was seeing a lot of my colleagues and business owner friends in the restaurant industry specifically be completely handcuffed and either lose their business, or they're on the verge of losing their business, or they're in this period of flux where they very well could lose their business. They definitely haven't made any money over the last 8, 9, 10 months. And that's just, it's so sad to me, right? To see people who have worked their whole lives to build, great restaurant brands, and to have all that fall apart. So that's been the saddest thing probably for me, innovation wise. And I don't know that this is going to help orthodontics very much because, right now you still got to go in and you still have to go into the office, but the acceptance around virtual meetings, virtual working from home, working remotely, I think is going to be ultimately the greatest thing that comes out of the pandemic. It's not going to be good for commercial real estate property. I mean, I read something the other day that commercial real estate was at like 7% occupancy in some cities, which is mind blowing when you think about like how did they ever recover from that? But at the same time, now you're going to have companies that can operate on better margins because they're not investing $50,000 for, a good sized law firm to have a nice office in East Memphis, spending 50 grand a month. How much more profitable and efficient can you be not spending that $50,000 a month if you're investing that into technology or larger salaries or bonuses or things like that? For us, the PPP money that they gave out in the year, when we looked at it and we were able to survive through that, you got this chunk left of, they gave you 2.5 times your payroll, that extra half time of payroll, we didn't need to bank that money in our business. We bonused it all back to our employees. And I think that type of, opportunity where you've got, government bailouts or stimulus money, and you've got the ability to look at your business and become more efficient and more profitable is ultimately going to make for a greater brand of entrepreneur in the next 15 to 20 years.
I have a friend who's an attorney, Dan Norwood, who's been around town for years. And he said something to me the other day, and he's been saying this for years, but it really is coming true. He says, Alan, work isn't a place anymore, it's an activity. And that goes to your point about commercial real estate. Although I'll say this, I think one thing all of this has done, and I think this may be a benefit for society, I think it's reminded us how connected we are to other people and how important it is for people to be together in community. We were created to be in community. And so, I think what it's going to be like anything else, there are restaurateurs in Memphis who decided, okay, I'm going to ride this out and I'm not going to change my business model, because if I can't make money the way I used to, then I'm not going to make money. And then there are lots of other businesses, restaurants who said, I'm going to figure out a way to make as much money as I made by doing takeout and delivery and whatnot. And I think that's going to be the key for commercial real estate is, all right, I've got all this square footage. I'm not going to have the same use to it, but what creative uses can we put this space to where people will want to come together in different ways? And instead of maybe having one tenant for a particular space, maybe I've got multiple tenants that are in, kind of symbiosis together. I don't know. It's going to be, I agree with you. It's going to be really interesting to see how all that plays out.
Yeah. And I think it ultimately becomes and this is just my personal opinion, we can pontificate on this all day long. I think it's going to be a hybrid of that, where you're going to see a building like Clark Tower that we're in. This is a beautiful building and they put a lot of money into it over the years. And the view, when you look out over the entire city of Memphis, I mean, it can be a very powerful thing, but it's, 20, 30% occupied, right? So how can they take this building and maybe make it mixed use, where you've got some really nice residences from floors, 25 through 33 and 15 through 21 are commercial, and you've got experience type things, whether it be, laser tag and, vocational programs for kids to come to after school to learn how to code on computer, things like that, where you can find these spaces that are needed for communities and wrap your arms around the community you're in and open your doors to them and find out how lively and vibrant a place can be when you allow everybody in and you allow everybody to work together to make it like the Crosstown Concourse is a perfect example of that. I think you could see that model all throughout the country.
I think you're right. And I used to have a law office in Clark Tower, and I used to say my office was conveniently located just 20 minutes from Poplar Avenue, because sometimes it could be a little tough to get into the building and up the elevator and whatnot. But I agree with you. It's interesting. It's interesting you bring up the concourse, the Crosstown Concourse. I think the dynamic that was created there is kind of interesting because it's so large. It's kind of become a community within itself. And I think a lot of people had been surprised that the residual benefit to the surrounding neighborhood hasn't been more dramatic. So,
it's a good point.
It's going to be interesting to see, because if you go with that model, then, you tend to get insular just in that one monolith. And I think that's what's going on to a certain extent with Crosstown, but I don't think anyone would argue it shouldn't have. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been done. It's just, you never know how things are really going to develop these days.
No, you don't. And that's, again, why I think Memphis is so cool, because even in a neighborhood, you think about where Clark Tower is. I mean, this is an incredibly established area around here, right? From Colonial Acres, I guess they kind of call this the money district section of Memphis, right? And you've got, so even outside, even the Racket Club right here behind us, right? They got to do something with that and develop that. But I think there's huge opportunity, certainly for the future, and for what you can do with commercial space and with communities to try to bring everybody together and continue to drive up the value of your communities. And I think Memphis has got, tons of room to grow and go.
No, there's no doubt about that. And I think one of the great things about Memphis is how accessible it is in terms of scale. And, I used to, in another life, as many people know, I was involved in politics, still am to a certain degree. And you talk about gentrification, and some people bring that up and say, oh, we don't want gentrification. And I said, look, Memphis is 343 square miles. We got a long way to go before we develop the town so much that we've gentrified all 343 square miles. There's plenty of room for that. But if you're a company in Chicago and you like a urban feel, you can come to Memphis and get your urban feel for a fraction of the cost of what it would take you to replicate that in downtown Chicago. And it's much easier to get in and out of town and everything else. And so I think the smart play for Memphis over the next couple of elections is to have a community conversation about density, about infrastructure, so that we don't do what Nashville did, which was grow, but choke itself off with bad infrastructure. They've got some topography issues that we don't have. They got lots of hills, and if you're going to widen the street, you got to blast the hill out. We don't have that problem here nearly as much.
Right.
But that's a community conversation that I think we need to have beyond one neighborhood saying, well, I don't want that high rise or that development because it's going to increase traffic. Well, that's part of the urban experience, and you trade off the density and the fact that that's easier to deliver services with the fact that you're going to have to put up with a few more people.
That's right. Yeah. And, what I would love to see, just like you say, is Memphis see that now, see what the potential that we could be Nashville in 10 years and work on that infrastructure, whether it's mass transit, or better, newer, more updated schools. Those are the type of thing, that are going to attract people to not only come into the city, but enroll your kids into the school. And then not just enroll your kids into the school, but be an active participant in those schools so that they can be great schools. You see what the suburbs are doing right now in Collierville and Germantown. They've all created these incredible school districts. Well, why do you think they're all so great? Because of the parent involvement in them is making them great. And that's what the city of Memphis has got to do, in my opinion, to get the education where it needs to be, so that we're ready for that boom in 10 to 15 years.
Right. I think one benefit the municipal school districts have is that they've just got fewer schools to deal with. And, I don't know the political ramifications of this in the county schools, which are now the city schools. If you could somehow get it smaller so that you could deal with problems on a smaller scale, and that would allow parents to get more involved. And but that's way above my pay grade at this point.
I don't know if it is, Mayor Crone.
Oh no, don't curse the city in that way. That's such a bad idea that it takes my breath away.
No, I thought the smaller school districts is a great idea, right? Pack them into these little five, you've got your, East Memphis school district, and you got your North Memphis and your South Memphis. And yeah, it could work, right?
The model I've always advocated was a model where you had a high school with feeder schools, and make that principal of that high school kind of a mini superintendent, and allow them to kind of dictate what the attraction is going to be for that school. In other words, Southside High School could become the math school, and you'd have people lining up to go to Southside, just like you do going to White Station, because they want to get their kid into the best math program in the city, that sort of thing. It makes a lot of sense, but if you could blow up the system and start from scratch, we probably have a better system, but that's just unrealistic.
Right. It is.
Well, tell me a little bit about Signature. We've talked about Neon Canvas, and I love the niche aspect of that. That's got to be so freeing to be able to concentrate just on one type of customer and really hone in and deliver your services in a world-class way for one type of customer.
It is incredible, and we can definitely talk about Signature, but of all the business moves, right? And it wasn't solely my idea. My business partner is an orthodontist who said, "Hey, this need exists out there." And not only is he an orthodontist, but he was a key opinion leader, someone that already had the ear of a lot of other orthodontists, where it made a ton of sense for me to say, "Okay, you keep doing what you're doing. Just tell everybody who's doing the work behind the scenes." So that if we can give anybody, right, whether it's an up and coming attorney who's trying to make their way, pick that niche that you can be awesome in. And it also makes it a lot easier for you to go all in with your content, right, around this niche and this idea. So because my business partner is a key opinion leader in orthodontics, we already kind of had that there. The goal for me, of course, is to do that with Signature in Memphis, because I am born and raised here. And I think the Signature story is so neat because one day we could be designing the box that all the FedEx interns are going to get, and choosing all the promotional material that's going to go in there, and the messaging and the copywriting. And the next day they could be building an app for True Green to help their salespeople in the field. So the team at Signature has been solving marketing problems and marketing solutions for these major brands for dozens and dozens of years. And what you see is that a lot of the brands get in, they kind of go through these phases where they'll do a lot of internal hiring, which is great. You get all these talented people in there, and then they're bogged down by red tape. So I think what Signature allows you to do is to get outside of that red tape a little bit, right? Get a budget that you've got control over, and you need a project done, and you bring it to us and let us find the solution to that project to get it done for you and make you a champion and make you a hero kind of within your within your department and within your own company. So that's our goal, is to just make companies look great, and to make those individual champions that we work with inside those companies look great by getting things done for them that they're typically unable to do with all the red tape around them.
What's your target client? Who, if someone's watching this, who is the person that you or company that Signature really can hit it out of the ballpark for?
Yeah, I mean, I think any business that's got a marketing budget that's pushing, from the $60,000 mark and up a year, where they need a team to control that marketing budget, is the perfect client for Signature. So whether that's a FedEx with a $500,000 budget in a certain department, and we're helping them manage that and get everything that they need done through their life cycle of projects, or that's a business like yours that needs website, that needs marketing, that needs content creation, that things like this that help grow your practice. In order to survive and thrive in any business, you need leads into the top of the funnel. And that's what Signature is great at doing, is putting those leads into the top of the funnel. So if you're a business where you need those leads coming into the top of the funnel, and you don't know where to go get them from, that's a great conversation to have with us. And then alternatively, if you've got a brand that you're managing where you need everything to be consistent, you need it to look good, but you also need that innovation, you need that newness, that freshness that you're not going to get from your internal brand standards, that's when you can step outside of the box and bring in a Signature so that we can bring new ideas to the table.
Very good. Now, it doesn't sound like sounds like with Signature, you're going a little bit of a different direction in that you've got more diversity in the industries that you're serving.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, Signature is your traditional Memphis agency. When you think about the Memphis agencies that serve Memphis, in the sense that we work with a lot of different type of businesses, whereas Neon has traditionally been focused on medical, whether that be orthodontics, which is our niche, but we also have plastic surgeons and dentists and pediatric dentists and orthopedics and things like that, right? So anybody that's kind of outside of that medical world fits really nicely into the Signature portfolio.
Very good. Very good. Well, now I understand that you were involved in the Las Vegas shooting in 2017, and was wondering if you'd be interested in talking a little bit about that, particularly how it affected you in terms of how you approach life after something that traumatic.
Yeah, I mean, so my wife and I love live music, and it's been a long time since we've done that, seen live music and gone to a concert. Now, it feels like something I don't know that will ever come back the way that it ever was. But we had gone out there to Las Vegas to see this show, and it was the end of the weekend. So it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and this tragedy happened on Sunday night. In the last act, Jason Aldean was playing, and he wasn't very long into his show, maybe 15 or 20 minutes into the set. And when it all happened, the first shots of fire sounded like fireworks. It sounded like gunfire, but gunfire that would have been fireworks related, right? So, look up in the sky and looking for fireworks, right? And I just saw kind of smoke. I thought, well, that's a little bit odd. If we hear that again, we're going to kind of move back and out of this crowd that we're in. And sure enough, we heard it again, like pop, pop, pop. And when I heard that second round of gunfire, I look up at the stage, and Jason Aldean and his guitarist are now like under the cover of what looked like stage security, moving them off. So we took off and we got out of there, but then there's 20,000 people trying to do the same thing. So when that gunfire starts shooting off, everybody just kind of hits the deck. And, when the gunfire stops, all I could think about was like, we have got to get out of here, because it sounded like the gunman was actually inside of the venue. We didn't realize later that it was actually happening up from the hotel across the strip. So, when you get out of that and you're lucky enough that we were moving the right way, that we kind of had our P's and Q's together. We had I wouldn't say it was pre-planned, but it's, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, okay, if something like this happens, like we got to get out of here. So I had looked and already kind of had a strategy of, okay, if we go this way, we can hide from gunfire, even if we can't get away. So that was the goal, is to head that way. And again, by the grace of God, we got out of there and got out of there alive. 58 people did not get out of there alive, and over many other injured, and shot with wound. I think it was 300 or 400 plus wounded. And, so I went after, getting back to Memphis, and you've got, press, and my wife had recorded this video as we were running out that a lot of people had seen and went viral on the internet, and Good Morning America, and all these people are calling, and there's all this adrenaline. You're willing and kind of ready to tell the story, but you have all these questions in your mind. And then as it all unfolded later, where, it was this like perfectly shaped up story that we were told of this one gunman, and none of it was really matching up. It just made me realize like this was not our story to tell. We survived this, but this story was about the couple from West Tennessee, just north of Jackson, who the husband died laying over the top of his wife, Sonny Melton. Her name is Heather Melton. I mean, died protecting her, took a bullet to his back. Like that's their story, right? To let it, how kind of that led them and changed their lives because they died. At the end of the day, it changed my perspective on life. I don't think it actually, necessarily changed my life, right? In the sense that anything was different after I went home. What was different was I realized in that moment, Alan, that it all can be taken away from you at a very young age, in an instant, no matter what you're planning for or not planning for. I mean, at the time our kids were, 2, 3, 4, and 15. And it's horrifying to think, wow, I mean, we're going to leave our kids orphaned. We're both here together and we could die. So in that moment, when you realize that, it allows you to change your life perspective to live for the moment, right? So if I'm with my kids now, if I'm with my team, if I'm working for a client, I want to give them everything that I have in that moment, to give the absolute best, to strive for excellence, to be great for them, so that if I'm gone tomorrow, that legacy can live on, right? The moments that they had with me, the impact that I left on their lives could be great. So that's what I strive for. We're not perfect humans, and we obviously make mistakes every day, and we're all sinners, and we kind of have to be at the glory of God, and accept that, we're walking his path ultimately, but we still see what's in front of us, and we still get to make the decision whether to go left or right or forward. And that's what being through a situation like that has allowed me to do, to see that path much more clear, and to understand exactly where I want to go, and the impact I want to leave on people.
Right, right. Yeah, I think there's some parallels there with the pandemic, in that I think a lot of people, I just talk from myself, I felt like it's not really a whole lot that, a disease can do to me, because, this is 2020 and we got a cure for everything. And something like that comes along and you really realize how little control you have over your own life, whether it's getting a disease randomly or being in that tough situation where, like you say there, but for the grace of God, you turn left instead of right at some point, and maybe the outcome is a little bit different.
That's exactly right. And to know that, it every day when you wake up, or you lose a loved one or somebody close to you, and it kind of hits home. But to survive it, and go through it, you can definitely give you a perspective that for me is unlocked somewhat of a greater potential, in the sense that I realize what the difference between having good days and great days are. And I want those great days. I want those, and every experience within that to be great, whether it's a podcast with you or listening to my children's day at the end of the night. I want to be present in that moment, and I want to give it everything that I have. And I think if we all did that, what an incredible place it would be if we all gave everything that we had in that moment to make it the best that it could be. I hate conflict, but in the world that we live in as a business owner, it's, you have 150 clients, conflict is inevitable. But how do you handle that conflict, right? Do you handle it with grace and dignity, or do you let it eat at you, and do you burn every bridge that you walk over? So it's hard. As I've gone through life and I've gone through experiences like that, I definitely lean toward the other side of it, right? Which is I want to handle it with grace and dignity, and a lot less of the 20-year-old self that wanted to just light a match and toss it over the bridge, right?
Right, right. Well, that's a powerful story. And Have you been back to Vegas since 2017?
I have. I went back for a conference last year with my team, and I was fine. It was fine. I have not done like the outdoor concert with perch surroundings. So, like the Memphis in May would be a similar our concert down there. I haven't done that yet. I have been back to a concert. But I think ultimately it's something that um I can live with, right? That I can not have this extreme PTSD by going back to Las Vegas or going to a concert. Hopefully I've realized that it was just one of my 9 lives, right? And that I guess I've got a few more,
Well,
hopefully.
hopefully so.
Hopefully.
We'll knock on wood on that one.
Amen.
Um,
Thank you.
the you say I be interested in your thoughts on this. You said that concerts may not come back for a while. Do you think that that the pandemic will alter the way we gather in community going forward?
I do. And I say that with a heavy heart because I wish that wasn't the case, right? I wish that uh, we could just go back to the way it was, but you heard everybody talking about the new normal and all this, and it kind of became a part of our vernacular last year. And the truth is, I think that's what it will happen is that we will all be a little bit weary of being in too close of a crowd or disease, right? Where I didn't go through my life ever worried about an airborne disease. You had seen the movies, you had heard that it could be, but it just was never part of our life. So it's going to be hard to be in a crowd again of, thousands of people, punched in and not be thinking about your health. It just is. And then when you take that to the next level of, mandatory vaccinations or forced vaccinations, and even this vaccination, I mean, it's awesome, right? But when they started talking about it, Dr. Fauci and these others said it's going to be 2.5 years or 3 years, right? And then 8 months later, they're rolling out this vaccine. That changes our lives. I definitely think it does, because there's no doubt in my mind that if they're having to constantly vaccinate us from disease, that couldn't be God's intention for our bodies. So that does concern me, and that's why I think that international travel. I mean, we were headed to Cancun recently, and they announced, hey, you're going to have a positive COVID test to come back into the country. Well, there's no way we could take that trip anymore, right, Alan? Because even if it was a false positive, or you've taken the virus and the virus, there's still people testing positive after they've taken the vaccination. I can't risk being stuck in Mexico for 2 weeks, and neither can a lot of other people I know. So, you would hate to think that it's going to change it forever, but maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll wake up and this whole virus talk will be gone. The media will quit talking about it. The vaccinations will be rolled out, and we'll be back to normal. I just don't see it in the near future.
Well, it's interesting what we put up with before. Um, people are cleaning now more than they used to, and you wonder. And I won't say, but like gyms, you almost wonder what it was like before, because they weren't sanitizing every day, and you had people sweating and all of that. People used to say that the worst thing you could pick up in a hotel room was a remote, that it had all kinds of bacteria and germs, and now they're cleaning all of that. I agree with you. I used to kind of roll my eyes a little bit when people would say, well, when things get back to normal, well, we're not going back to 2019. We're going forward to whatever's in the future, and it's going to be a combination of what we had before and what we've been through. It's all going to be like Zoom. This type of thing. A year ago, I didn't even know how to operate this thing. Now I'm pretty good at it. And it's just going to be with us forever. I mean, there's probably a lot of board meetings that if I can attend them by Zoom, I'm going to do that. So I guess that's kind of a lead up to the statement that you probably are right, that this is going to affect us going forward. If I could get in a time machine, one of the stops I would like to make is after the pandemic in 1919, did they have a similar adjustment to getting back to normal after that? I don't know. That may be a good source of inspiration to go back and look and see how they they dealt with the return to community after being socially distant and whatnot.
Yeah, and if anything, I think that the consciousness of not sending your kid to school sick, or you yourself not getting on an airplane sick, or not going into a grocery store when you're sick, I think that could be one of the greatest things that comes from this, our overall health and our ability to get through flu season without a lot of deaths, and being cognizant of what this does as a carrier, maybe not to you, but to your grandparents or your parents or someone else that it could affect and take out. I think if anything, we get anything out of it, it will be that, right? It will be a better consciousness about our health and our germs and the way that we spread those into the community.
Yeah, I think 2020 in a lot of ways was the year of false equivalencies, because you had a lot of people making arguments. And one of my favorite that I thought was really interesting to contemplate was the argument, well, we've had 300 and some odd thousand deaths due to COVID, but X causes so many more deaths a year, and we don't do anything about that, whether it's smoking or alcoholism or drunk driving or whatever. And,
Suicide.
I'm not sure what that says about us, other than why are we accepting those other deaths and not doing something about it? I don't know the answer to that, but it's an interesting thing to contemplate.
To me, it makes me realize how powerful the media truly is, because if the media wanted to focus on HIV or world hunger, or pick the topic for a year, every day, all day, and our government wanted to put all of their effort and energy into it, cancer or whatever, I gotta believe we could solve those problems, right, Alan?
Well, I hope so. And like I say, it's above my pay grade, but
Well, I
I
do it
just,
since it is the Ask Alan show. I would love to ask you, what do you think 2021 brings us in a new, a new administration, a mandate from the Democratic, party. Really, they've got all three branches of the legislature. What do you think happens now in the next 4 years? Do you see the turning point around viruses and the unification around the United States?
well, it's going to be it'd be very interesting. I think that we're at a crossroads, and President Biden can choose to govern more in the mold of a Howard Baker, who looked for compromise across lines and really try to de-emphasize it, or he can govern more like Donald Trump and go to the extremes and the fringes. And I think he was elected because most people thought he was going to go in that middle road. It is a law of political physics that when you have all three branches of the government, typically what happens is you overreach. And it happened to President Obama. It happened to President Trump. It happens to every one of them. And then you get pulled back. So it'll be interesting to see how President Trump and the Democrat majorities play all of those cards down the road. And I think that the American people, the vast majority of American people right now, are looking for basic accomplishment. Let's get rid of this pandemic. Let's get back to business in whatever form that looks like. And once we do that, then let's talk about some of the hot button issues, such as a higher minimum wage and racial and social justice. And okay, how are we going to attack those things, and maybe try to use some of that commonality to attack those things in a meaningful way. But if they decide, okay, we're just going to ram through a bunch of these things we've always wanted to do, like the minimum wage and DC statehood and things that are perceived as more partisan, then I think we're going to be back in that cycle. No matter really what you think of them politically. I know I have gotten tired, and I'm a Republican. Unabashedly a Republican. I'm what I would call a Howard Baker Republican, small government, that sort of thing. But I got tired of the drama show and the tension and the nastiness that Trump had become, and or that had accompanied Donald Trump. And I'm looking forward, even though I may disagree with a lot of the things that President Biden does, hopefully he will go about it in a way that's more professional, more civil, more courteous, more, like I say, professional, where there's some predictable reaction and you can have a dialogue without end up throwing things at one another.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's get back to to just being human, and we can always find common ground, whether you're on the left or the right. I think we can always find common ground in the middle.
That's right. Well, that's a good place to end with common ground. Alex, I really have enjoyed our conversation, and we'll do it again, either on this program or in person when we can do that sort of thing. Again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching Ask Alan. If you've enjoyed this program, and let's not kid ourselves, you did enjoy it because you've watched the whole thing, please share it, email it, share it on social media, comment on it, like it, do whatever you want to do so that other people can enjoy it as well. And we'll see you next time on Ask Alan. Thank you very much.